Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Letters to Tahira. Tahira K. Nam Khatud. By G. A. Parwez. Translated by Mrs. Suraiya Alvi. Chapter 6-7. Sixth letter to Tahira. Demand for dowry. My dear, this time I received your letter quite late. Salim's letter told me about your welfare. I have seen that your guesses about age are generally incorrect. Shafkat must be at least 27 or 28 years of age. She used to carry you around, although she was quite small even then. If she was 6 or 7 then, it does not make her less than 27 or 28 now. You were 21 last Shaban. Lunar month. I know she is so well versed in household chores. She is intelligent, educated, good-looking and looks after the whole house. Our girls from good families radiate their beauty through health and modesty. She is healthy and so modest. I have never seen her head uncovered. She talks with downcast eyes. If ever she has to pass in front of me, she passes with such a shrinking manner as if she is about to sink into the earth. She has grown up in front of my eyes and is like a daughter to me. Your surprise is quite justified as to why she has not been able to get a proposal for marriage so far. It is just your misunderstanding that no boy comes up to the mark in her father's eyes or that her mother wants a family of high status. Matchmaking problems. The facts are just the opposite. The other day poor Chirag Ali tearfully related his tale of woe. He was telling me that proper proposals are available. Women do come to look up the girl and like her, but after that it is inquired as to what she would get as dowry. He was saying that Shafkat's mother has prepared a reasonable dowry for her. In our homes people start preparing the dowry from the day a girl is born. Gradually then, clothes, jewelry, utensils and other necessities of a home are all ready to be given to the girl. All those things are ready for Shafkat, too. But these days these things are not considered as dowry. Somebody demands a motor car. And somebody wants a bungalow. And somebody is wishing for 10,000 rupees in cash. He was telling that a few days ago there was a proposal from a place called Tirgaran's locality. The boy is a matriculate with a salary of 60 rupees per month, but his demand is to study abroad. If we can afford it then he will marry our girl. Whereas Shafkat has a bachelor degree. Shafkat's father was relating this story and was becoming beside himself with anger and grief. With a sobbing voice he said, I have foregone many conveniences, even lived hand to mouth, but I saw to it that my daughters are well brought up and gave them a good education. Now to send them off from the house you need thousands of rupees. Whatever I spent on their education, if I had been saving it, surely I would have the amount which is being demanded now. Just see how people think. If an uneducated girl brings along 10,000 rupees, then they accept it. But if the same amount has been spent on her education, then they do not value it and nobody inquires about such a girl. Her crime? Her crime is nothing except that she had a foolish father who preferred educating his daughters and now he is too poor to give bungalows and cars in dowry. So these innocent girls have to pay the price of the crime, my dear brother. He is older than I am but he always addresses me with respect. They are love and sincerity personified. My dear Tahira, after they depart, you would not find such people even if you leave no stone unturned in search for them. There are very few people who might be knowing that brother Chirag Ali and I have merely been living in the same locality. Generally people think I am his elder brother. Demand for dowry. Brother Chirag Ali continued then. Only I and my God know how I sent off my eldest daughter Ismat from my home. Now it is Shafkat and 2 more younger daughters, also grown up. Now you tell me, at my age how do I fulfill the dowry demands? My dear brother, when I go home in the evening, the sight of these 3 grown-up girls makes my heart sink. But the thought that my moroseness may affect them adversely, I smile a fake smile in return to their greeting me. When I face the food, each morsel feels like poison going down my throat. When your sister asks about my success in this respect, I only sigh and she starts crying involuntarily. I do not have a house which I could sell or a property which I could pawn. Firstly, nobody would lend such a large amount. Secondly, even if I could borrow it, a big chunk of my salary would go towards paying the installments. Then what would be left to feed the children? Dear Tahira, did you hear why Shafkat does not get a proposal? Every time brother Chirag Ali tells me his harrowing tale, I wonder why the sky does not fall upon us, or the earth does not give way. Just think, most of us have boys as well as girls. Poor Chirag Ali has daughters only, he does not have a boy. But other homes do have both, boys and girls. We all demand dowry worth thousands of rupees when we want to marry our boys, never thinking that tomorrow when we have to marry off our daughters, where would we get all that money from? All of us, whether rich or poor, have to face these worries when we have to marry our daughters, but there is nobody who would forward a remedy for this universal and self-created malady. Dirty mentality. Tahira, have you ever wondered what kind of mentality produces these demands for dowry? The mentality that thinks that a woman's status anyway is inferior to man. Since a woman is inferior, when a man bestows the honor of making her his wife, he encashes this investiture, and the price is called the dowry. You did witness the bargain of Reman Kamba's cow when you went to the village. The bull's owner was not willing to exchange his bull with the cow. Reman had to pay along 50 rupees with the cow to get the bull. But our girls fare less well than a cow or buffalo. If Reman had to pay 50 rupees along with the cow, at least he got the bull. Here on the other hand, the girl's side give their girl along with 10,000 rupees. And the boy's family take all this, and then take away their boy, too. Meaning, 50 rupees, the cow and the bull all become the possession of the bull owner. Tell me, have you even seen this kind of bargain being transacted anywhere? Have you ever seen such useless commodity whose removal would cost you 10,000 rupees? My dear daughter, this is the status we have given to our girls. A few days ago your uncle Rizak told me about a good proposal for his daughter. Since the boy's father was no more, he would come himself to talk things over. Rizak was hesitant to talk to the boy, so he asked me to do so for him. So the boy came to our place. He was gentlemanly, educated and discerning. I liked him. The bargaining. When it came down to the transaction, he simply told me that a motor car should be a must in the dowry. I felt very angry, but the girl's side is not supposed to show it, so I asked him gently, "Mister, what is it you are asking the price of? The girl is as much educated as you are. As far as your income is concerned, it is less than a joiner. A joiner gets 6 rupees daily, which adds up to 180 rupees per month, and you are earning 150 rupees monthly. If the girl wishes to earn, then surely she can get more than you. She is sacrificing for you, and you, instead of being grateful for it, are demanding a motor car." It was so obvious he could not answer this, and was rendered speechless. However, we lost that proposal. He struck a bargain elsewhere. Woe begone, all this is happening among those who call themselves Muslims, and after proclaiming themselves Muslims, they say all praise be to Allah. They are proud of calling themselves Muslims. The Islam to which we ascribe ourselves, as I have told you in my previous letters, considers men and women equal in all aspects of life, but in respect of the marriage contract, nikah, he has given a woman a better status. He has addressed the man by saying that if you want to contract a marriage, you alone are not equal to a woman. You should add a gift to make yourself equal to a woman. This gift is called dower, meher, which equalizes the deficiency in a man's stature. Therefore the equation is like this: man plus dower, meher, equals woman. Dower, meher. Nowhere does Quran mention that woman should bring something along with her. He requires man to span this deficiency with dower, and if he has nothing to give, then he should, like Moses, work for his wife's father for 8 or 10 years. 28. 27. This is the status of woman according to the Quran. But contrary to it, dower has become a force. Some weddings reverberate with the boastful announcement of dower amounting to a lakh and a quarter. 1 lakh and 25,000 rupees. Which means you do not pay a single penny. Just make a boastful announcement. In some weddings it is announced that meher is according to the Sharia. Muslims' personal laws. Which is an amount of 32 rupees. We do not know who told them this. Dower was the value which a man presents to cover up any deficiency on his part, but now we practice quite contrary to what it was meant to be. Dower has been reduced to a mere formality, and the woman has to take something along to become a wife. This something is called dowry. For those who cannot afford it, their daughters' heads start displaying silvery streaks, while they are still at their parents' threshold. Some ill-mentioned go even beyond this. After receiving the dowry they start pestering their wives to squeeze their parents. As long as she keeps bringing something from her parents, she is kept in the house. The minute this source dries up, she is turned out of the house and kept dangling unsure of her fate. Or she is divorced altogether. The forlorn dejected girl, along with her children, seeks refuge in her father's house and the husband starts bargaining elsewhere. This happens in our society every day and there is no protest against it. Hindu custom. In India the custom of dowry started from the Hindus. They do not give anything to a girl from her father's property, so she is given something as charity. They consider it a virgin charity kanyadan. In their society woman lives on charity all her life. As a daughter she gets no share in her father's property, and neither as a wife from her husband's, nor as a mother from her son's property. Therefore her father gives her something in charity upon her wedding. This gradually became dowry, and the Muslims adopted it from there. Now Hindus have abolished this crude custom by law. But Muslims, praise be to God, are progressing in it. Dowry demands are on the rise day by day. As a result, the poor fellow who gets 3 or 4 daughters feels heavily burdened. Sensitive girls feel for their parents' predicament and start blaming themselves. This develops an inferiority complex in them, ultimately leading to various nervous disorders. When they are advanced in age they either become wayward or are driven to commit suicide. Both acts are shunned by the society. It does not feel guilty that, instead of blaming those suppressed and innocent girls, the society which creates such circumstances, should be punished. But Tahira, what is happening here is, that the one who slaughters is the beneficiary. We do not know when the rule of Quranic law would reign. And when the oppressed would be free of their shackles. My dear daughter, I have been struggling all my life for this. Perhaps you would be able to see its results. Do think of something for that poor Shafkat. She, too, has a right over you, or for that matter not just she, every oppressed person has a right over us, because we, too, are responsible for their oppression. Therefore, please do something for that poor girl. God be with you. Parwez, June 1954. 7th letter to Tahira. Friction between a woman and her mother-in-law. Yes, my daughter, your friend Rashida passed away at long last. You wonder as to how she could go away at such a young age, and I marvel at the fact, that she survived that long? She was hardly 21 or 22 years old. 5 or 6 years earlier, she got married. I could sense right from the beginning that there was something that was corroding her inner self. I tried to probe many times, but she had locked her heart so completely that nobody could get a clue to it. 3 years passed like that. But after this, her absolute quiet, her sad face, her forlorn eyes, her pale complexion and her lost looks, all combined could not hide her predicament. All this was happening inside her, but she was absolutely quiet. Then she started running a temperature, which told us that this quiet volcano or fire had burned even her bone marrow, which led her to her death. Rashida was such an understanding girl, cognizant and well-versed in domestic affairs. More serious than girls of her age and very sensitive. She was about 13 or 14 when her father heard a cleric say that when a girl is physically mature she should not be kept in the house until she gets married. Associating with her would be illegitimate. So now the problem with her father was not of looking for a good proposal but how to show her out of the house so that he could avoid the great sin of associating with her. To fulfill this religious Sharia need for sending his daughter out of his house, became his top priority. You know it very well that in our homes, every matter can be talked about, except a marriage proposal, which is kept a top secret. Special care is taken that the concerned girl does not get an inkling of it. Secrecy. Rashida's parents, too, used to discuss about her proposal secretly. People living around might get to know about it somehow, but everything was to be kept a secret from Rashida. Even if she could get to know about it from her mother, it certainly would make no difference. It would have been impossible for Rashida to disclose her likeness. In our society, if a girl utters a single disapproving word about her prospective proposal, her father feels robbed of his honor and he would strangle the immodest girl. So it was meaningless whether Rashida was kept informed or not. Anyhow, wherever her proposal was being fixed, she abhorred it. Destiny. But this did not have any impact. Our girls are taught right from the beginning that souls are linked in heaven and therefore, the linked ones are destined to come together on earth. You get whatever is written in your fate. You cannot obliterate your destiny. Their nuptial knots are tied in heaven and the angels have already performed the nikah, marriage contract. On earth, we just follow a formality. We are told that all these details are Islamic law, so there is no question of a girl choosing a proposal. Rashida was a girl with depth of vision and she used to feel that all these things were wrong. Many times she tried and wanted to talk to her mother about it, but every time it happened as if something had got stuck in her throat and she would be forced to remain quiet. The conscience. Do you know, Tahira, what it was that used to prick her and get stuck in her throat? This was that demon which we call the conscience, and we hold it so sacred that its decisions are considered godly and its command is regarded as coming directly from heaven. It has become the criterion of everything right or wrong. In reality, however, this sacred voice is nothing more than the sum total of our upbringing, environment, and beliefs, all having their effect when taken together. This seeps in our hearts since childhood and gradually matures into a certain shape of lasting and deep impression. Do you remember the Jains? A Hindu sect. Who used to be your neighbors in Amritsar? The very mention of meat used to make them vomit, whereas your own son Javed, of the same age, used to suck at a bone the whole day. The conscience of a Jain's child would tell him that meat is a bad thing and unholy. But our Javed's conscience never pricked him for eating meat. This was that voice of conscience which used to scare Rashida like a demon. You are a girl and a Muslim girl, how could you comment on your proposal? If only she would have Quranic education before her, she would have shunned the wrong training, the wrong education, the wrong environment and the wrong belief, which she used to think as the voice of her conscience. And she would have proclaimed that according to the law of God, the contract of marriage could be executed only between a consenting boy and girl. Anybody defying it would be rebelling against the law of God, whether it comes from within or without. There is just one infallible voice in the world that cannot go astray, and that is the voice of God as it comes to us through the Quran. All this was happening at the girl's side while, on the other side, Hamid's marriage was being talked about. Not that he was in a position to be consulted, but the plans at least were not as secret as was done with the girl. Hamid, too, was a discerning boy, so he told his mother that their circumstances did not allow him to get married. Father has been sick for quite some time and cannot earn. The whole family depends on my meager salary. Firstly, if we borrow money for marriage expenses, there will be no way to pay back. Secondly, some expenses would be incurred due to a new member of the family. How would I cope with all the expenses in the same salary? In these days of inflation, expenses keep on rising, so let the question of marriage be shelved. On hearing this, the mother sighed and said, some people were correct when they used to tell me not to send the boy to college because its education leads the good Muslim children astray. I never used to agree with it, but I admit now that they were right. God is the sustainer. Hamid, you do not seem to believe in God at all. You have started calculating like that. Don't you think that He is the sustainer? You ask, where would this come from, where would that come from? The God who brought us into being, does He not care for our daily bread? The God who looks after life inside stones, would He not look after us? Son, retrace your steps and ask His forgiveness. What kind of thoughts have started coming to your mind? She, who would join our family, will bring her sustenance along. We are nobody to be providing for anybody. The same God is the provider of all. Whatever you are destined to get, you will definitely get it. Nobody can snatch away our destiny from us. If we are destined to be poor, then nobody can change it to riches. If we are destined to starve, then nobody can save us from starvation. God's good people are those who are content with their destiny. This develops contentment in a person. Contentment is so valuable that only special godly people get it. If you study the lives of God's messengers, leading lights, saints and godly people, you would see what adversities they had to face and bear. Trust in God. They had no food to eat, no clothes to wear, no house to live in and no bedding either, but they trusted God and remained content in their destiny. God raised their status. Ayub, Job, was very dear to God. His whole body was infected. If ever a germ used to fall off his body, he used to pick it up and put it back in his wounds and used to say, if you were left on the ground, where would you eat from? God rewarded his patience and made him his messenger. This is, son, true belief in God. Satan has put doubts in your mind and you have started thinking about how, if you got married, you would manage with the same salary. Non-salaried people get their sustenance, too. Was our Nabi, peace be upon him, getting a salary? Hamid's mother said so much in one breath that he could not decide which question to answer, and to end the argument he simply said, dear mother, I say just this much. Do not arrange the marriage just now. Wait some time more, till either my salary increases or at least Majid is through with his college and becomes capable of earning something. Then you can get me married. I am not refusing to marry. His mother, cutting him short, said, son, good proposals do not come by every day. It is just by the grace of God that Sister Sabira's heart is set upon it, otherwise we do not deserve a girl like Rashida. A beauty with brains, educated, intelligent and discreet. Ever since she has started managing the house, it has turned into a nice abode. Women come to see her from far off places. Could you get such a girl from anywhere? And Saint Abdusamad was saying that this girl belongs to a lucky star. So whichever house she enters, she will turn it into a heaven. I thank God a million times that my sister conceded to my request, and you are asking me to wait and not arrange the marriage. Just think, would her father like to wait for your promotion and then marry his daughter when silver starts shining on his daughter's head? Hamid was about to say something when his father entered the room panting, and asked his wife as to what the quarrel was about. When he was told, he said, dear Hamid, I only want to say one thing, and that is that my sickness has become so advanced that I do not know how long I have to live. My only and last wish is to see you married before I die. After this I shall be able to die in peace. Won't you fulfill this last wish of your old and ailing father? Hamid wanted to say something, but his father roared in anger and said, I want to say it for the last time, and this is my order. I do not want to say anything more. Obedience to parents. Meanwhile the call to prayers was heard and Hamid went to say his prayers. It was a strange coincidence that day, the priest before delivering the sermon touched upon the problem of obedience to parents. He advised that according to Islamic law Sharia it is your duty to obey your parents. Parents' status is equal to God's status. God never forgives a person who disobeys his parents. He goes straight to hell. Then he related how modern education had made today's youth rebellious and how they did not obey their parents or respect the elders. Hamid was listening to all this and was perplexed. He realized that circumstances demanded that he should not marry. His situation, knowledge, discretion, and experience all favored this decision. He could see all the disadvantages of this untimely marriage. One by one, which tallied like 2 and 2 making 4. But on the other hand he was being told that obedience to parents was a divine duty. You should never raise your voice against their decision. Just accept it without reservations. If you do not do it, then you would be committing a crime against God. Since childhood he had a strong religious hold on him, and God's will superseded the demand of the time. After saying his prayers he repented and asked for God's forgiveness for his mistake. He went straight home from the mosque and respectfully asked for his father's forgiveness. I was causing you depression. I would not mind obeying you in the least. Do whatever you want to do. I shall remain your obedient son. Mother's eyes gleamed with happiness. She got up and hugged her son, blessed him and showered all the endearments on him. This is how this problem was decided. The Quranic injunction about parents. Just think, Tahira. Could God order that you not use your mind or not utilize your faculties? Close your eyes to any profit or loss, and whatever your old parents ask you to do, you just obey them blindly? You would say that whatever I am saying sounds good, but what should I say about this obedience to parents being a divine injunction? But you would be surprised when I shall let you know that obedience to parents is not a divine injunction. The only Quranic injunction for parents is to look after them well since they have become old and deserve your care and love. You would say that it is an established fact that obedience to parents is our religious duty, and no one differs on this. I would say there are so many wrong notions which have become established with the passage of time. If I prepare a list of all those beliefs which are considered as obligations by our traditional religion, and which in fact are not, and put them in front of you, you would feel dizzy. Just ponder how a notion becomes an established fact. Any notion which is handed down for 2 or 3 generations becomes an established fact. The criterion for right or wrong is the Quran. If the Quran says that something is right, then it is right even if nobody agrees to it. Whatever the Quran considers wrong is wrong, no matter if the whole world thinks contrary to it. You will also say that the duty to obey your parents is not only considered obligatory by Muslims, but every religion and every ethical code in the world considers it as an established obligation. And I will say that one reason of the Quran being revealed by God, is that the Quran does not care what the world believes in. It calls right only that which in actual fact is right. If the Quran had been authored by a human being, then it would have included all the notions, which the world considers obligatory. But it did not come to follow the world. It came to make the world follow it. So it does not care whether it abrogates the set beliefs and ideas which have gained the status of set obligations by the religions of the world. Because their own divine laws have not been preserved in their original shape. It is the aim of the Quran to present the facts, and it has done so. Take this question of obedience to your parents. It is admitted by all the religions of the world as a set obligation. But the Quran says, if we grant long life to any person, we cause him to be reversed in nature. 36. 68. And that in old age one does tend to become senile. This is a useless part of one's age. The Quran says, some are sent back to the feeblest old age, so that they know nothing after having known. 22. 5. The Quran and other religions. These are those realities which can neither be denied by any religion of the world nor by any code of ethics. In spite of this, they all say that a young man whom God has bestowed with knowledge and discretion, with the will to decide, has been endowed with strong nerves and faculties, and who has a sound and fresh head and heart, he should be bound by the decisions of those who have become superannuated with rusty knowledge. Their nerves and faculties have been frayed. Their heads and hearts have become subservient to their emotions. They cannot comprehend the demands of the present times which are raising this young man in the race of this world. And they are lagging 50 years behind. These types of orders can only come from those codes of ethics which have been made by the old generation who want their younger folk to obey them. But Quran's code of life has been sent by God, it can never issue such commandments. Maharaja Ramchandar, a Hindu ruler, could be considered the initiator of such a code of conduct, or man-made religion. He considered it his duty to obey even that order of his father, which even the father thought to be wrong, and Maharaja was forced to promulgate it. But Quran's hero is Abraham, who openly denounced his father's beliefs and practices and refused to follow them. Quran says, "There is for you an excellent example in Abraham to follow." 60. 4. But do not think the Quran is teaching you to rebel. It teaches you to obey. But obey whom? God's laws only. Nature of obedience. For this reason alone. Where on one hand Abraham is declared a hero of Islam, on the other hand Ismail his son, too, is being considered the same kind of hero for surrendering his neck to his father's knife. Why did he do so? Not because he obeyed his father, but because he thought that it was God's command. That was why he said, "O my father, do as thou art commanded." 37. 102. The fact of the matter is that it was not a command from God, as it was misunderstood. Therefore, according to the Quran, total obedience is for God's laws alone and not of parents or anybody else. The Quran teaches that until a child reaches adulthood, the decision-making on his behalf and looking after him is the responsibility of his parents or guardians. Therefore, he should not decide things for himself. He should follow his elders' decisions. But when he comes of age and becomes knowledgeable, then he should take decisions in the light of divine laws himself. Therefore, for a knowledgeable young person, total obedience to his parents is out of the question. It is a blessing that mankind on the whole has not adhered to this code of ethics, i.e., obedience to parents, and was not feasible either. Otherwise, if whole of mankind had followed it, then the world would have been stuck at the same place where it was at the beginning. There would have been no progress in any sphere of life, because if the present had been bound by the previous generation's decisions, how would it have advanced? The old generation considers its past as the best period of mankind, and grinds its teeth if ever anybody digresses an inch this way or that way. This is the reason why every aged person's nostalgia makes him cry. He belittles the modern time. His times look so rosy to him that he curses the present. The universe is rising upwards and not downwards. It is taking its strides forwards and not backwards. Anyway, my dear, this is the decision of the Quran about a concept that you had been thinking as an accepted reality. Now, I hope you understood how Hamid had been put upon a wrong track by the ignorance of that priest addressing the gathering in the mosque. Anyhow, this was how Hamid got married to Rashida. The first 1 or 2 months were glossy, but after this the bitterness of having taken a wrong step started surfacing its ugly head. Mother-in-law problem. In human society, the mother-in-law problem is so deep-rooted and complicated, that the human mind has yet to solve it. Whether in the East or West, the mother-in-law problem is present everywhere. In the East, since a wife is the weaker vessel, it is always the mother-in-law pestering the daughter-in-law. But in the West, where women are dominant, the poor son-in-law considers his mother-in-law a demon. Sometimes it happens, without doubt, that you get a mother-in-law even more loving than your own mother, but this is one of those exceptions that do not prove the rule. Generally it happens as I have mentioned above. As far as I have pondered, the mother-in-law problem is more psychological than social or economic. The way a mother has brought up her son, she considers him her sole property. and she considers all rights reserved in her favor. She just does not want to share his love and attention. A mother nurtures all these sentiments unconsciously until her son comes of age and she starts thinking of marrying him. At that time, it does not occur to her that she herself is bringing home somebody who would become more absorbing for her son than herself. The mother. She thinks that she is getting a wife for her son, and since her son is her sole property, therefore whatever would belong to him, would automatically belong to her. The only status that she gives to the newcomer is that of a vehicle to provide her with grandsons and granddaughters. She is so absorbed in doing all this that she does not realize she is bringing in a shareholder. But after she brings the daughter-in-law home, it suddenly dawns upon her that her son is no longer under her thumb. Since the cause of all this is daughter-in-law, the mother takes her as a person who has robbed her of her dearest possession. And she is then bent upon to take revenge for her loss. Her son cannot judge the psychological change of his mother, and neither can the daughter-in-law. Since it does not occur to them that they have snatched something from her. So they keep looking for the reasons for the mother's annoyance elsewhere. And the situation keeps deteriorating for everybody. Since unlike the mother, a father does not have this kind of notions in his mind, so the coming of a daughter-in-law does not perplex him. If ever he has complaints, they are of a different sort. Some people think since every mother-in-law treats her daughter-in-law in a similar manner, then when after some time, the daughter-in-law becomes a mother-in-law herself, she takes out all the excesses done to her by her mother-in-law, upon her own daughter-in-law. And this keeps going on and on. Anyway, whatever the reason, the fact is that the hell we witness in 99% homes of our society, its basic reason is that the boy's mother does not prepare herself mentally for this new mode of life. Consequently, she herself is in hell, and she makes the newlywed's life a hell, too. And no one knows why this is happening and what its remedy is. You must have noticed, Tahira, when the friction in such homes is analyzed, there is nothing to it. In fact, there is no issue at all. The real issue is what I have mentioned above, but neither the mother nor the son seems to be knowing this consciously, and neither does the poor newcomer. That is why such friction is considered incurable by us. And we, too, accept it as inevitable. But dear Tahira, all this is because of our ignorance. Separate house for the newlyweds. Tahira, there is only one remedy, and this is that before the mother proposes, she should understand that her son is beginning a new life in which his love and attention will be transferred towards his wife. There is only goodwill left for the mother. If she understands this, then it is practical that the boy should be separated to lead his own life. He should be responsible for spending his own life, and there should be no interference. You will see that in this way the son will look after his mother, and the daughter-in-law will respect her, too. If their financial condition does not admit the burden of two separate households, then the boy should not be married off till he is capable of shouldering the responsibility of a separate household. Otherwise there is no way to save our homes from the fire of this hell. In Hamid's case, his mother had financial difficulties besides psychological problems which were apprehending him at the very start. The collective effect of marriage loans, increasing expenses at home, and the father's chronic illness took their toll, and the mother-in-law started taking it out on poor Rashida. The same Rashida who before marriage used to be praised so much as understanding, discreet, quiet, virtuous and obedient, was now somebody in whom the mother-in-law was picking holes all the time. She became an ill omen, and somebody who could not do anything good. Her stepping into this house has robbed our house of prosperity. With the same income, the house used to be flourishing, but now it looks God-forsaken. She has no manners, she cannot cook, and she cannot look after the house. Did her mother think that her daughter would never have to go to her in-laws' house, that she did not train her for it? The spoilt brat. The tussle. The minute Hamid used to go out of the house in the morning, the mother-in-law would start hurling such brickbats of sarcasm till the evening. Rashida tried her utmost to please her mother-in-law, but all in vain. Her mother-in-law was hell-bent on pulling her down. Rashida used to bear all this stoically. She did not even mention it to Hamid. When the mother-in-law noticed that Hamid was not checking his wife, she started complaining about Rashida to Hamid. This way the hell that Rashida was going through engulfed Hamid, too. As if financial constraints were not enough for him, he was plunged into a new predicament. This entanglement was quite queer. He was a discreet boy who could judge a situation and reach a conclusion. He could see that Rashida was absolutely innocent and that his mother was entirely to be blamed. But because of deep-rooted concept of respect and grandeur of his parents and the sermons he had heard about obeying them, he could not dare to accuse his mother, and take sides with his wife. All this was causing a tremendous psychological turmoil for him, but he could not avoid it. His wife's exploitation, parents' obedience, and his own helplessness were feelings which were gnawing at his heart. He knew the only solution to this predicament was to separate from his parents, but his financial helplessness was making it impossible. When once or twice he expressed such a desire, his mother beat her own head and threatened him with committing suicide by jumping into a well, if ever he thought of separating from her. All these problems started telling upon Hamid's health. It was affecting Rashida more than Hamid. She was bearing the yoke herself, but when she saw that her husband, too, was being affected, this was more than she could bear. She was being corroded inwardly and was drying up. In the same state of health, she gave birth to her first child. It is so obvious that if a child's mother's health is deteriorating, the child would bring some diseases or susceptibilities to them along with him. Rashida was not keeping well and, on top of this, the poverty did not allow her to care for the child. It was probable that Hamid's mother would have borrowed some money for the caring of her son's first male child, but woe betide, it was a daughter. The bad news distorted her vision and she called the child her ill-omened daughter-in-law's ill-omened daughter. Who would have looked after her? She survived somehow for 3 months, and then passed away leaving an indelible mark on her mother to mourn. Conclusion. After this, Rashida's condition deteriorated day by day. She contracted tuberculosis. The division of the subcontinent had made his parents so poor that they could not afford her treatment, and one day, she finally gave up the struggle. Tahira, this is the heart-rending story of your childhood friend. It is not just her story, it is the story of your society. We do not know how many Rashidas are scarified every day. Firstly, we do not know the inner story of a house, and secondly, if we do get to know, then it is only that so-and-so's daughter, or so-and-so's daughter-in-law died today. Other than that, nobody would know how she died. The advice. One never knows, Tahira, that when your son Javed grows up and you will be worrying about his marriage, whether I would be there or not. But you must remember my 2 or 3 points. If you act upon them you will be happy, and so would Javed and his wife. Firstly, think of marrying Javed when he is fully financially capable of shouldering his responsibilities. If ever, God forbid, he has to help his parents financially, he should be able to do so easily. Secondly, keep fully in mind that after his marriage he would be attending mostly to his wife and not you. You should only expect goodwill from him. Right after marriage, arrange for their living separately and you should interfere the least. Whatever interference you feel is necessary, should be given as a suggestion. And if they reject that suggestion, do not mind. After this you will see how Javed respects you and how you are revered by your daughter-in-law. I am writing all this and laughing inwardly. I know today you like what I say and adhere to each and every word of it by saying that is how it should be, because you are the daughter-in-law and somebody else is your mother-in-law. But you may not remember a thing about what I have said when you are the mother-in-law and somebody else is your daughter-in-law. Life is a queer cycle. But we have made it like this. The Creator of the world did not make it for us. He creates all humans the same, we make mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. After this, the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law remain and humanity leaves them. But come what may, God's laws keep humanity intact. They never let it decay. Rather they keep on raising it higher and higher. Hence whether you are a mother-in-law or a daughter-in-law, do not forget the humanity in you or the other person. In God's sight all humans are worthy of respect. The Quran says, "Verily, we have honored the sons of Adam." 17:70. A person who keeps this truth always in mind, is a Muslim. My blessings for Javed and God be with you. Parwez, January 8, 1954. Talu Islam Trust. 25B, Gulberg 2. Lahore, Pakistan. taluiislam@gmail.com